The following is a list of 30 scholarly vocabulary words. It's nice to use some words that are more educated sounding. Sounds like you've gone to college or university. These words are good for reports or for formal reports, formal speeches, formal conversations. You should use some of these in your everyday speaking too. But anyway, let's just begin. I would first like to give acknowledgement to wordsinasentence.com, which is where I got many of my example sentences. So please visit the site if you would like to see how specific words are actually used in sentences so you can better understand them. That's wordsinasentence.com. So the first word in this list is disparage. Disparage. This means to speak of something negatively, to kind of tear it down, criticize it. There are people who want to disparage American foreign policy. Other examples would be, it is never right to disparage people based on ethnicity. You disparage my brother by saying he is worthless. I cannot believe that you belittle and disparage people who have little in common with you. Spreading false rumors about Judy will unfairly disparage her reputation. He has some nerve to disparage the conservative way I dress at the beach. As a middle school teacher, I witness students verbally disparage each other on a daily basis. So the students are always saying insulting things to one another. Lying is one surefire way to disparage your own image. So you shouldn't lie. Disparage my character and I'll pick at your flaws. What I never understand is why politicians disparage their opponents. So you see this all the time in politics. One politician will speak negatively of another. Do not disparage your mother for just making you do your chores. Disparage, to speak negatively of someone or something. This word is either acumen or acumen. I would probably say acumen. And it has to do with being accurate or showing great ability towards something. He has the acumen needed to make good business decisions. So let me give you some other examples. John's business acumen, along with his computer skills, made him an asset to the software company. While you excel in the area of customer service, you do not possess the financial acumen necessary to become a branch manager. Although Sarah wants to become a state senator, she lacks the political acumen to win enough votes. You need more than acumen to become a successful car salesperson. Even though Harry was a fantastic chef, he was unable to run a profitable restaurant because he lacked business acumen. So I suppose acumen is pretty much like skill. The board game will put your trading acumen to the test. The acumen displayed by our principal is the reason our school is one of the best in the nation. Since you have made so many unprofitable trades, your business acumen is in question. or your business ability is in question. Attorneys with acumen are highly valued at any law firm. Over the past 3 years, the company president has displayed unshakable acumen, great ability. So, acumen. Adroit. This means to be very skillful at doing something. Playing a wind instrument requires adroit technique. Other examples would be, the child was an adroit pianist at an early age. Another might be, because Leonard is adroit at mental calculations, he is able to solve complicated math problems. Another example is, their rugby team consists of several adroit players. Even though Gwen had been taking violin lessons for years, she was still not very adroit at playing compositions. Sarah is considered to be an adroit plastic surgeon. Although Herman proved quite adroit at carpentry, he was never able to sell any of his pieces. The butler was adroit at running a large household. When it comes to managing your money, it is obvious you are not very adroit with financial matters. So in other words, he doesn't handle his money very well. My cousin Lenny is an adroit fisherman, so he's good at fishing. While Pierre was an adroit writer, he was a terrible speaker. So he was very good at writing, but he was not good at speaking. Dexterous. Dexterous. To be very skillful at using one's hands. But sometimes the word is used in connection with being skillful with your body or mind. So the example we have here is, to be an accomplished piano player, you must be dexterous. Other examples. Since I do not often use my left hand, I am not dexterous when I use it for writing. The chimpanzee is a dexterous animal that can maneuver objects as well as a human does. The old carpenter's hands are no longer dexterous enough for him to build furniture. At the age of 6, the boy revealed he was a dexterous pianist and played his first sold-out concert. The masseuse's dexterous hands made me feel like a brand new person. Although Janet is not a great singer, she is a dexterous guitarist who can play a song after hearing it only once. The country's bomb squad is made of dexterous men and women who are highly skilled at detonating explosives. As the crowd cheered, the dexterous acrobat flipped from one high bar to another. So this person is not only using his or her hands, but their entire body, his or her entire body. The dexterous painter could perfectly reproduce any painting within 2 hours. Because Harold is a dexterous pool player, he rarely loses a game. So it generally is used to mean good with your hands, but sometimes it can be used to be good with your body or mind. Next we have didactic. Didactic. This pertains to instructive. Her lessons are always very didactic, so it means very instructive. His novels are didactic, so you can learn a lot from reading his novels. Other examples: while the professor's lectures were designed to be didactic, they only served to confuse the students. Oh, that's too bad. Although the fiction books are not meant to be didactic, they are quite informative. Even though my parents drive me crazy, I know they think they are being helpful by giving me didactic advice. The purpose of the didactic presentation was to teach us all about the dangers of cigarette smoking. Marcia created a didactic software program to help students learn their multiplication facts. We often say multiplication tables. Because Mrs. Jones came up with lessons that were not only didactic, but also fun, everyone thought she was a fantastic teacher. In its analogy of beauty versus ugliness, the poem tries to be didactic while delivering an important lesson on self-image. Since you are taking a trip to Europe, you might want to review this didactic guidebook on the subject of European travel. His didactic style of teaching involves a large number of student-led discussions. In the past, didactic plays were used to teach morals to the audience. Didactic, instructive. Ignominy. Ignominy. Disgraceful conduct, humiliating. The ignominy of being caught in the act of stealing was punishment enough. Other examples: after being confronted about the theft, the official left the room in ignominy, so he was humiliated. Our team has to face the ignominy of a long losing streak. Because he was given a dishonorable discharge from the military, Carl had no choice but to return home in ignominy. So he was disgraced. Once upon a time, if you were an unwed mother, you were viewed as a source of ignominy. The convict displayed remorse for the ignominy he caused his loved ones. So his actions caused all of his loved ones to live in disgrace. Unsure as to whether or not she could face the ignominy of being demoted, Karen quit her job. The incriminating pictures brought ignominy to the celebrity. I cannot believe ignominy caused the man to take his own life. Oh my goodness. So he was so distraught over doing an ignominious thing that he actually committed suicide. John's many extramarital affairs brought ignominy to his wife. While he was once loved and respected, he now walks in ignominy. Ignominy, disgraceful conduct that brings humiliation upon oneself. Expurgate. Expurgate. To remove objectionable material. The book was expurgated to make it suitable for children. Other examples: the rapper was told that if he did not expurgate the offensive lyrics from his new song, it would never be played on the radio. so he had to remove his bad lyrics. Although Noah tried very hard to expurgate thoughts of Anna from his mind after the breakup, he still saw her face everywhere. So he could not remove her thoughts from his mind. He could not expurgate them. Even though Wikipedia can be a helpful resource, the interactive ability allows anyone to add information that may be inaccurate or expurgate accurate information just because they are offended by it. Well, it's a long sentence. When she discovered that her boyfriend had found her diary, she decided to expurgate some of the juicier parts by tearing out the pages. The juicier parts, that's an expression that means the probably more sexual parts, something like that. She may have written something about her sexual activities. The producer agreed to expurgate some of the R-rated scenes so that the movie could be shown on network television. So R-rated usually means there's bad language and possibly sexual scenes in a movie. So he had to remove them to show them on television. Some parents have demanded that the author remove some of the objectionable language, but similar efforts to expurgate Huckleberry Finn and other great works have resulted in much less effective literature. Because the author's novels were widely read by middle schoolers, she received a number of requests to write a different version and expurgate all references to Satanism. According to historical records, there was a lot of disagreement among the founding fathers over whether or not to expurgate the passages referring to slavery from the Constitution. While some people believe that some content in Shakespeare's works is inappropriate for younger readers, they wouldn't understand it anyway, so why expurgate it? It seems to me that it is immoral to try to expurgate anything from the sacred writings of the past. But there are even some versions of the Bible that have been edited by misguided fanatics. Well, that's just an example. It's just saying that some things from the Bible are sometimes expurgated or removed. Expurgate, to remove objectionable material. Vituperative. Vituperative. Some people might say vituperative. To harshly condemn. The supervisor receives such vituperative criticism that she resigned. Other examples. We cannot be friends if you continue to attack me with vituperative words. After dealing with the vituperative criticism of her peers for several years, Ellen finally decided to quit her job. Some people really seem to enjoy hurting others by writing vituperative comments on the internet. Even though Phil claimed he was not vituperative toward his children, the police department found evidence he was mistreating his kids. The student was given detention for using vituperative language in class. When Helen spoke to her son, he spoke to him in a vituperative manner that made him cry. The critic gave the play such a vituperative review that ticket sales came to a grinding halt. During our divorce hearing, my husband made lots of vituperative statements about me. The actor became angry when he read the reviewer's vituperative critique of his latest film. Without a doubt, Brad should apologize for speaking to his mother in such a vituperative tone. Vituperative, to harshly condemn. Next we have extirpate. Extirpate. To completely destroy, or to destroy completely. It is our goal to extirpate all crime from society. Other examples: hopefully the pesticides will extirpate the insects from my garden. If Jack is lucky, the surgeon will extirpate all of the cancer cells from his body. No matter what I try, I cannot seem to extirpate the ants from my kitchen. The undercover cop's job is to extirpate drugs from the local high school. By providing our dog with chew toys, we hope to extirpate his habit of chomping on our shoes. The exterminator said it would cost over $300 to extirpate the termites from the foundation of our house. Do you think we can extirpate the mice from our house using these no-kill traps? Until you extirpate your feelings of self-doubt, you will not be able to achieve your goals. The new police chief promises to extirpate corruption from society. That would be nice, wouldn't it? In his speech, the president vowed to extirpate poverty in our nation. That would also be very, very nice. Next is strident. Strident. To be loud or harsh. The old man's voice became so strident that I could hardly listen to him. Other examples: even through the apartment walls, Jack was able to hear the strident argument between his neighbors. The relationship will never go far if you continue to talk to me in such a strident tone. Since I had a headache, the birds chirping sounded quite strident to me. The elderly politician was a strident man who constantly yelled at his staff members. As the firemen began to put out the fire, they heard a strident voice screaming for help. Because Jenny has a strident personality, she has few friends. The hungry baby's cries sounded strident. In a strident voice, the police officer ordered the criminal to drop his weapon. It was obvious from Hank's strident tone that he was very angry. Strident. To speak in a loud or harsh manner. Jaded. Jaded. That means to feel tired or just not be enthusiastic about something. The workout caused us to feel a bit jaded, to feel tired. Other examples: after being on an airplane for nearly 24 hours, Henry is a bit jaded and never wants to travel again. So he wouldn't be enthusiastic about traveling again. Ever since I started working late every night, I have become more and more jaded by the thought of becoming a manager with this company. The world is so jaded by violence that people are starting to feel unsafe outside their homes. Because I've eaten nothing but noodles for the past 2 weeks, my taste buds are a bit jaded. So his taste buds are kind of dull. James was jaded with love after having his heart broken countless times. So he's no longer interested too much about having relationships. After listening to a lecture from my mother, I was so jaded I locked myself in my bedroom for the rest of the day. So he just felt bad, non-enthusiastic, lacking motivation. A number of people have stopped watching television because they have become jaded by the presence of reality shows on every channel. So they don't want to watch anymore. They've lost their motivation to watch TV. Because my children play video games regularly, they are often jaded by violence in the real world. The celebrity was jaded by the media after being in the public eye for 30 years. So the media said bad things about this celebrity, and then he didn't want to be in the public eye anymore. He lost enthusiasm for being famous. It is easy for overworked and underpaid teachers to become jaded and miserable. So they lose their desire to teach. Jaded. This word is either sonorous or sonorous. I would probably say sonorous. This means to produce a deep, full sound. He read aloud in a sonorous voice. So had a deep and melodious voice. Because Hank has a sonorous, pleasant sounding voice, he is often paid to narrate television commercials. I wear earplugs so my husband's sonorous snoring does not keep me awake at night. So this is an unpleasant sonorous sound. When the doctors heard the patient's sonorous breathing, they knew he needed oxygen immediately. So this would be a deep, deep type of breathing that was indicative of a medical problem. Santa Claus's sonorous laugh could be heard across the huge toy shop. So he went ho, ho, ho in a deep sonorous sound. Unfortunately, our neighbor likes to wake us up with the sonorous sound of his trumpet. So here again, the people don't particularly like the sound. The lion's sonorous rumble startled small children in the zoo. So we had a deep, deep rumbling sound. When a sonorous sound came from the volcano, the residents of the village knew it was time to evacuate the area. The town crier had a loud, sonorous voice that was easily heard throughout the town. So a crier, a town crier, is a person who makes announcements in the town. More than anything, the deaf girl wished she could hear the sonorous sound of the tuba. Sonorous, a deep, full sound. Rhetoric. This refers to language well produced to motivate people. The president's rhetoric may start a war. Other examples would be, the protesters' rhetoric is filled with anger towards the government. As a teenager, the best way to avoid trouble is to ignore the angry rhetoric of your peers. The senator will be a great president because he is big on action and low on rhetoric. The general hoped his rhetoric would stir his soldiers into action. Although the cult leader filled his followers' heads with crazy rhetoric, he did not want any of his people to die. The politician hoped his rhetoric would win him some votes. Conjecture. Conjecture is similar to the word surmise. It's an inference or just a guess, kind of casual in nature or just your opinion. The investigator conjectured that the plane crash was due to pilot error. So he's just sort of guessing. Other examples would be, because the scientist had only conjecture to back up his untested theory, He doubted if the university would offer him any research funds. Your argument is being ignored because it is basically nothing but conjecture. For the most part, you are merely stating conjecture when you insist your team is going to win the football championship. Why are you getting upset about something that is simply conjecture and has not been proven? Until we hear from the mechanic, we can only view this car estimate as conjecture of the actual price. Let us disprove this scientific conjecture by conducting a laboratory experiment. So conjecture is just a guess not based on very much. Pedantic. Pedantic means to be overly concerned with rules. Some people are too pedantic concerning punctuation. Sometimes James is so pedantic in writing the perfect paper that he forgets to properly manage his time. So pedantic might refer to a kind of perfectionist. As a grammar teacher, it is hard for me to not review everything with a pedantic eye. While Bess wants to encourage her daughter Lauren to do well in school, she often gets too pedantic when reminding Lauren of the rules and expectations. My father is a pedantic man who usually misses all the vacation fun because he is busy reviewing travel documents. Greg's pedantic way of analyzing every word in a sentence makes him a huge asset to the publishing company. Although I am a decent proofreader, I do not believe I have the pedantic skills necessary to be a good editor. Pedantic. Usually overly concerned with rules, but in some contexts you may want to be very pedantic, such as if you are a paid editor. Multifarious. Diverse or various. Microsoft is a large multifarious organization. So it has many parts to it, many sections. Other examples would be the multifarious bookstore had a gigantic selection of books on a large number of subjects. While the school has a multifarious student population, it is actually located in an African American part of town. The multifarious buffet on the cruise ship offered something for everyone. Before you decide to buy a certain car, I suggest you visit a dealer with a multifarious stock so you can test drive many vehicles. Our Christmas tree is always adorned with a multifarious assortment of ornaments. So multifarious just means many different types and kinds. Next we have alacrity. This means to do something with cheerful eagerness. She accepted the invitation with alacrity. Other examples would be, having studied really hard last night, the student took the exam with alacrity. Or, the boy jumped up and down with alacrity as he inched closer to the candy store. Another would be, the eager student attacked all schoolwork with a rarely seen alacrity. So he liked doing it. He really wanted to do it. A lack of alacrity to serve caused unwilling men to be drafted into the war. So in other words, many men did not want to serve. Her alacrity to learn more about biology grew as she diligently studied the subject. Because Jessica lacked alacrity in reading, her desire to finish the book diminished. So alacrity, a willingness and a cheerfulness and an eagerness to do something. Next is tangential. Tangential means not very related to what you were already talking about. There might be just a very slight relationship, but you took that course and went off on a tangent. So when we argue, please don't go off on a tangent. Don't talk about something that's basically unrelated. Other examples would be, I hardly ever learn anything in my history class because my teacher always rambles off on a tangential topic that has nothing to do with history. During the student's presentation, she was so nervous her speech was filled with tangential thoughts that were not related to each other. Our team lost the debate because our responses were tangential and did not respond to our opponent's position on the subject. Although Alan owned a part of the basketball team, he had only a tangential interest in the sport and rarely watched the games. So you can see can be a very slight connection, but not much of a connection. In her latter years, my grandmother would often respond to our questions with tangential responses that completely confused us. So tangential, this is a good word, you should know that. People say that a lot. Oh, you're just going off on a tangent, or please don't go off on a tangent. Cacophony. Cacophony. This is a noisy mixture of sounds. A lot of different types of sounds that are just very noisy and distracting. We were awakened by a cacophony of squawks and rooster crows every morning. Other examples would be, sometimes it seems as though the dogs in our neighborhood bark together to create a cacophony that wakes me up every morning. Because the band had not practiced enough, their arrangement came across as a cacophony instead of entertaining music. The cacophony in the crowded classroom drowned out the principal's announcement. When the actor walked into the theater, there was a cacophony of screams from the reporters. Although I do not mind a little noise, the cacophony in the packed stadium really got to me. The little baby would not stop crying when he heard the cacophony coming from the animal pen. The cacophony caused by the explosion sent me diving under the bed. Because Mrs. Thomas left her classroom unattended, she is the one responsible for the cacophony coming from down the hall. So cacophony, just a lot of noisy things happening. Arcane. Arcane. Not easily understood, or understood by just very few. The theory of relativity is arcane to many people. Other examples might be, because it is no longer taught in schools, people are concerned that cursive writing will become arcane. What, don't they teach cursive writing anymore? That's hard to believe. The elderly teacher had an arcane way of teaching mathematics. So very odd or unusual, difficult to understand. Here's an interesting example. The restaurant location was so arcane that you had to be blindfolded in order to enter the building. So I guess arcane in this context means more like secretive. Police always inquire why the identity of my grandfather was kept arcane. An arcane band was playing in an underground location. So here again, an unusual type of music, maybe not easily understood by most people. So anyway, arcane, this is a good word to use. You should have this as part of your vocabulary. Next is insular. Insular. This means isolated, being by yourself. The insular farming community seemed to know nothing of pop culture. Another example, because the insular man had lived on a deserted island for several years, he was not very good at making conversation. The people who live on the mountain have insular personalities because they are not used to being around other members of society. My grandparents' insular attitudes make them very uninterested in what is going on outside of their own lives. Although I do not socialize a great deal, I do not have any insular traits as of a result of my self-imposed isolation. Only a few people live in their insular neighborhood in the coldest part of Alaska. As a government spy, I am insular by nature and interact on a social level with very few people. Because you are a world traveler, you should not have such insular views. Insular. So isolated from your surroundings. Staid. This means to be very serious. He was a very staid and religious man. Other examples. In his business suit, my staid boyfriend looked out of place in the wild nightclub. The teenage girl thought the nursing home party sounded staid. Since my aunt is a nun, she always wears such a staid look on her face. Larry prefers the staid life of a country gentleman. Unlike my sister, I do not find science to be a staid subject that puts people to sleep. My staid professor was not impressed when I told a joke about my missing assignment. If you want a lively bar and grill, then you should avoid this staid establishment that is run by a religious couple. Mike's staid apartment is bare of furniture and completely lacking in color. When people describe my boss, they describe him as a staid man who never smiles. The elderly librarian dresses in a staid manner. Staid. The next word is prospectus. Prospectus. That's a proposal or business plan. The prospectus for the new business venture was discussed at the meeting. Other examples might be they can't read the prospectus. It follows that a contract is not a prospectus under Section 10. Some people love to pore over the details in a prospectus. How well do you understand risk descriptions in the prospectus? So that is a prospectus a business plan. Next we have gaffe. A gaffe is a social error or blunder. For example, how could anyone commit such a gaffe as walking in front of the Queen? So it's a kind of embarrassing blunder. Other examples would be, after the actress tripped over her dress, she realized millions of people had seen her gaffe. Clarice made a social gaffe when she wore jeans to a formal event. The blogger made a gaffe when he referred to the football player by another athlete's name. Because you are human, you are bound to make a gaffe every now and then. So that's gaffe. Reticent. Reticent. This means to be reserved and not open to speak about personal things. The woman was reticent about her past relations. She didn't want to speak about her past relationships. Other examples might be, while Barbara likes to discuss her personal life with our coworkers, I am much more reticent. Rather than voice her political opinions, Eileen prefers to remain reticent. When asked if he broke the lamp, the child was reticent and refused to make eye contact. Joe was reticent when I asked why he did not go to school today. Because Anne is so reticent, you hardly ever know what she's thinking. Never one to be reticent, Cliff made sure everyone knew his opinions. In regards to discussing his client's guilt, the lawyer must be reticent in his responses. It is okay to be reticent around people you do not know well. Why were you so reticent when I asked you about your day? Reticent. Unwilling to talk about things, particularly personal matters. Lugubrious. Lugubrious. This means looking or feeling sad or mournful. The old man's face looks even more lugubrious than usual. Other examples might be, surrounded by dark clouds, the isolated barn made the perfect inspiration for the poet's lugubrious poem. Just because I'm a bit down today doesn't mean I'm in a lugubrious mood. After his wife left him, he walked around in a lugubrious condition for months. To ease the lugubrious atmosphere in the church, Tom told a few religious jokes. Franklin despised his job at the ketchup plant, so he always had a lugubrious look on his face at work. Because of you, my lugubrious heart will never love again. How sad. Considering the sad state of the world, it is not surprising the news is always filled with such lugubrious reports. Lugubrious deals with sadness or mournfulness. Erudition. Erudition. That deals with extensive learning. The old man's erudition made everyone want to listen to him. In other words, he knew a lot about many things. He was very intelligent, very well schooled. Other examples, because he values erudition, my grandfather sent all of his children to school to study. People appreciate Albert Einstein's erudition for structuring many scientific theories. The research project was intense and built erudition in the minds and hearts of the scientists. Writing a 40-page research report requires mega erudition, as one or two book sources are not enough. Interns gain erudition and a wealth of knowledge during their time in medical school. Intern means a person in their first year of practicing medicine. My attorney has a great deal of erudition in immigration law, but he knows very little about divorces. So erudition means very schooled in something. Vicarious is a very interesting word. Vicarious. This means as if one were taking part in another's experience. For example, the vivid photos gave me the vicarious experience of sailing on the ocean. Like you could feel like you were really there. Those pictures made you feel like you were really there. As my daughter was crowned the winner of the beauty pageant, I felt vicarious excitement coursing through my veins. So the mother of this girl felt like she was there herself, being crowned. Since I have many food allergies, I tend to be a vicarious eater who enjoys food through the stories of others. So this person enjoys things that he or she cannot normally eat due to food allergies, but can still enjoy the food by hearing others talk about it. John experienced vicarious pain as his wife gave birth to their first child. Well, isn't that something? So the husband felt the same pain as his wife did, just by being there and because he loved her so much. Vicarious. Next we have ebullience. Ebullience. Intense enthusiasm. The ebullience of happy children makes me feel good. Other examples. At the birthday party, the ebullience of the excited children could be heard through their giggles and laughs. The smiling faces in the artist's paintings conveyed ebullience in a way that other happy pieces couldn't. Overflowing with ebullience, the excited players were overjoyed to have won their first championship game. The baby's birth brought on a state of ebullience for her ecstatic parents who were overjoyed on her arrival. Ebullience. Very happy, very enthusiastic. Lastly, we have prodigious. Prodigious. This means an enormous amount of something great in size or extent, right? The United States uses a prodigious amount of natural resources. Other examples would be, after indulging in a prodigious meal, I really needed a nap. She is very proud of her son, who has a prodigious talent for playing the guitar. As evidenced by her excessive weight, Amber has a prodigious appetite. The magician held the audience's attention with several prodigious tricks. Despite his disability, Harlan has made many prodigious accomplishments. Organizing the fundraiser was a prodigious task for us. I'm afraid of the wrestler because of his prodigious size. A die-hard reader, my Aunt Edith, has a prodigious collection of books. Prodigious. That's the end of this list of scholarly words. I plan on making more such lists in the future. So come back often. And remember, English will empower you. Goodbye for now. Teacher Mark.